everybody, and welcome back to TJ's Talk Show. And it is Thursday night, which means Thursday night football. And my Raiders will be in action tonight against division rivals, the Kansas City Chiefs. But before we get more into that, let's go ahead and I'm going to do a little bit of a baseball talk since there was a little bit of news that happened yesterday and this morning. So we'll quickly go over that. We'll go into the Kansas City-Oakland game in the chilly tundra of Kansas City. And then if we got a little bit of time, we'll talk some NBA. Just a little preview. There's 6 games tonight. So first off, let's go back to the MLB. And first off, the New York Yankees doing what they do best and throwing money at premium free agents. And they have signed, or re-signed, I guess, for the second straight year, Aroldis Chapman, left-handed closer. The Cuban defector has re-signed with the Yankees after being a Yankee last year and then traded to the Cubs in June or July when the Yankees realized they were out of playoff contention. So, and that's probably something Brian Cashman really thought about because he knew he was going to be a free agent at the end of the year. You knew you were going to have a lot of money to throw at him if you wanted to. And might as well get some prospects for him, and that's exactly what happened. He traded him last year, got some prospects. Chapman did his thing in Chicago, won a World Series, and now he's back with the Yankees, and he has signed a 5-year, $86 million deal, and that is the most for a closer, I believe, all time. Plus, there's a no-trade clause for the first 3 years of the deal, which I would also assume he would have to approve the trade if that were to ever come into occurrence where the Yankees are nowhere near making the playoffs and they're going to say, you know what, we want to trade him. But that's also very unlikely since they signed him to a 5-year deal. You don't want to give up somebody with a lot of team control. But yeah, so Aroldis Chapman signed with the Yankees, 5 years, $86 million. So that'll put him back in the closer spot, and it'll move Dylan Betances back to the setup role where he was much more comfortable last year. As you saw, his stats decreased tremendously once he got moved into that 9th inning closer spot. So back to some familiarity for the back end of the Yankees bullpen. 7th inning, or 8th inning, you have Betances, 9th inning, Chapman. Also, reportedly, it's still nothing official yet, but the Chicago Cubs, defending world champions, have been really close to signing former Boston Red Sox Koji Uehara. Like I said, that is not reported that they have signed him yet, but reports are they are fairly close. Nikon Sports in Japan reported that the contract or the deal agreed upon is a 1-year, $4.5 million deal. Koji Uehara signs with the Chicago Cubs. Again, that is not for sure. That is not signed, sealed, and sent off. But that is the indication right now. And, if it's being reported as pretty close to being a done deal, you just kind of got to roll with it being almost a done deal. And the Cubs trying to shore up or lock up some back-end help for their bullpen. And Koji has been a pretty good back-end bullpen arm for many years with the Red Sox, and after losing Chapman, you need to go and resupply that back end, and so I think Uehara is going to be a good addition there for the Cubs, who are going to really have to rely on their bullpen. So that's pretty much what's happened so far in the MLB hot stove in the winter meetings. Those concluded today, so you never know. Now each GM and front office guy got to talk to all teams and inquire about different players, and now they go back to the respective front offices, wherever those may be, and continue to make calls and try to sign guys. There's still plenty of options out there. Edwin Encarnacion, Jose Bautista, Kenley Jansen, who will now be looking somewhere in the $80 million range after Chapman and Melanson both got 80 plus. So you would think Kenley Jansen would ask for more. He's been linked to the Marlins, and I've also heard the Dodgers are in there. So that's also a hot name to be looking at. But so far, that's pretty much it today now let's go ahead and talk about my Oakland Raiders going against the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City tonight, in a game that has actually meant something this time of year for the first time that I can really remember. Okay, the Raiders, we all know, haven't been good for many, many years, since 2002, and then they fell off a huge cliff and have yet to get out of the cellar, except until this season. Right now they sit 10-2, so that's definitely a plus. Oakland definitely means they need to win this game at 10-2, and right on their heels are the 9-3 Chiefs, right now in the playoffs in a wild card spot. But this could definitely change the whole dynamic of the West if Kansas City were to win this. In Kansas City, kickoff is in about an hour 15-ish, and it's set to be about 25 degrees down there at Arrowhead Stadium. So it's going to be a cold one. It's going to be very physical. Carl Joseph is ruled out for the Raiders, as is Stacey McGee. So those were both announced yesterday. Don Terry Poe for the Chiefs, and Kendall Reyes both listed as questionable for this game. Kansas City currently is 3.5-point favorites over the Raiders, so that's definitely something you have to take into account. Kansas City did win the first matchup between these two in Oakland. Oakland is currently undefeated on the road, so definitely things are looking good for the Raiders. Let's look into, a little bit of team stats here. Fairly close. Points per game, Oakland leads that category, 28.8 points. Kansas City averages 23 points. So it should be a fairly close game. It could also turn into a shootout. Points allowed, Oakland allows 25 points a game compared to Kansas City's 20. Okay, so we have all known the Raiders don't play defense all that well. And it's as bad as they give up more yards per game than they gain. Which is a lot of yards. They gain 395.8 yards a game, and they allow 400. So that's something you really need to keep an eye on. Kansas City averages 346 yards on offense, and their defense has given up 397 yards. That's a bigger margin for difference in yards. I mean, Kansas City's given up basically 400 yards, as is Oakland, but Oakland almost gets 400 yards a game, where Kansas City's around 350. So Oakland really needs to take advantage of that 50 yards of difference in the average. Rushing yards is what's going to be the biggest thing here, I think, in this matchup. Kansas City averaging 98 yards a game compared to Oakland's 114. But the last time Kansas City and Oakland played, Spencer Ware ran for 130 yards himself. I believe Kansas City ran for about 190 yards on Oakland, in Oakland when they played each other. So that's definitely something where both teams need to improve on. Oakland on the defensive side and Kansas City on the offensive side. Both teams are averaging 123. Oakland allows 124 rushing yards, Kansas City 121 rushing yards. So that should be fairly even. But Oakland can't let that number get too high. You can't allow Spencer Ware to rush for 120 yards, because that's going to kill Oakland's defense, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on the secondary, because Alex Smith will go to the play action time and time again, and it could be a long night for this Oakland secondary, especially with Carl Joseph, the rookie safety, out. So Reggie Nelson's going to have to really step up there in the other safety position. So this is, like I said, a very big game. Last week, both teams came off a win. Kansas City and their star defensive player, Eric Berry, saved the game for them. They beat Atlanta 29-28. Atlanta took the lead 28-27, and they went for two to try to put themselves up by 3. Smart move, right? I mean, I can understand it. But what happened was Matt Ryan threw a pick 6, or a pick 2, I guess you should say. Eric Berry ran a ball, intercepted it at about the goal line, 1-yard line, and ran it all the way back to give Kansas City the 29-28 lead, and that was the final. Oakland was also in a shootout themselves. They had to come from behind against the Buffalo Bills Tyrod Taylor had a great game for the Bills, as did LaShawn McCoy. And the final was 38-24 Oakland, thanks to a Khalil Mack strip sack with 2 minutes left in the game that preserved the win. Derek Carr, yet another come-from-behind victory for the young all-pro quarterback, in my opinion, and potential MVP candidate. Derek Carr, number 4 on the program, number 1 in your heart. The Fresno State Bulldog is being exactly that, a Bulldog all season long, throwing the ball around, hitting Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree, Clive Walford, Seth Roberts, Andre Holmes, you name him, he can throw it to him. So that's very positive and very encouraging for the Raiders moving forward. Tonight's going to be a cold one, so I would expect the ball to be on the ground a little bit more, giving it to the three-headed monster, Latavius Murray, Jalen Richard, and I believe it's DeAndre Washington. I always forget his first name, so I apologize. But Washington, Richard, and Murray definitely have to pick it up tonight. I would assume you're going to put a lot of pressure on them tonight, giving them the ball a lot more times than not, with it being 25 degrees. But can't sleep on Amari and Michael because they can definitely do some damage. And like I said, tonight in about an hour 15, that game will kick off. Kansas City is 3-point underdogs, but I have Oakland winning 31-28. Derek Carr leading another come-from-behind victory. And that'll be it for the football talk, and I'll recap the game tomorrow. I know my buddy Jordan Daney is a big Chiefs fan, so we got a lot riding on this game. We both do. Both teams fighting for first place and home field pretty much, because the North and the South aren't really in the home field advantage talk right now. Oakland and New England are tied at 10-2, so this is a big game for Oakland and a big game for Kansas City, who would then go into first place at AFC West with a win and the tiebreaker over the Oakland Raiders, beating them twice. So, big game. If you can, watch tonight. Chiefs, Raiders in Kansas City. Going to be a good one. Very exciting. And like I said, I got the Raiders winning 31-28. And I believe my buddy Jordan Daney, has the Chiefs winning 28-21, I believe was the score. So we got ourselves a shootout and a close one at that. So very intriguing for this matchup tonight. And let's quickly, I have about a minute. I got 2 minutes left here on this segment. So let's go ahead and quickly just jump into a preview of the NBA. Those games are starting in about 45 minutes, all games around the country. We got Portland at Memphis, San Antonio at Chicago, which I think could be a very good game. Rajon Rondo and Jimmy Buckets and D. Wade going against Kawhi, LaMarcus Aldridge, Tony Parker, Danny Green, David Lee, Pau Gasol. So that should be a very good matchup. Pau's first game back in Chicago after leaving the team last year to come to San Antonio. Also, you have Minnesota at Toronto, Denver at Washington. The struggling 76ers of Philadelphia go to New Orleans to face one of the best big men in the league, Anthony Davis. And then the Golden State Warriors and their four-headed monster of Clay, Steph, Durant, Draymond Green will head to Utah, to face Gordon Hayward and the Jazz. So that's pretty much where that game, or the scoreboards are at the moment. Like I said, there's about 45 minutes before those games tip. I got Memphis beating Portland because Portland doesn't know how to play defense against bigs or inside the paint, and I think Zach Randolph, Marc Gasol could have their way with them. San Antonio I have beating Chicago because it's San Antonio and Kawhi Leonard's a freak and LaMarcus Aldridge is too much to handle on the interior. But I do think Mirotic, Butler, Wade are going to have a good night, so it's going to definitely have to come down to it. Defense on that game. I got Toronto beating Minnesota, Denver beating Washington, New Orleans beating Philly, and Golden State beating Utah tonight. So that's just about all the time I have for you tonight. Once again, the Raiders play in about an hour against the Kansas City Chiefs on Thursday Night Football. Go Raiders! And that is all I have today. This is TJ Pineda. Thank you for listening, and I will see you tomorrow.